Welcome to the Design of Experiments episode of the online classroom. In this episode, we're going to look at the influence of factors contributing to the range of the car by setting up a design of experiments. In this experiment, I'm concerned about three different factors that might all affect the range of a car: the travelling speed, the tyre pressure, and the cargo weight. The reason I'm looking at these three factors is because I want to make sure that the range that I need the electric vehicle to cover for my daily commute is enough. I'm looking at these factors to try and improve the range of the electric vehicle in case I need to travel further in a day. When you're building an experiment, you need to make sure that the procedure is repeatable. In this case, because we're not going to measure the range of the vehicle each time, we're going to set up something as a proxy for the range. In a petrol vehicle, that might mean measuring the amount of petrol each time the experiment happens, or in an electric vehicle it might be measuring the reduction in voltage after each experiment. In both cases, you would want to set the experiment up correctly again by either refilling or recharging. One of the important things to remember when you're conducting the experiment is to mix up the runs to reduce bias, because if you repeat the runs in the same order, you're likely to have some bias in there. In setting up a design of experiments, I'm going to take the average speed, pressure and cargo weight as my middle or zero value. Either side of that, I'll have a low and a high value for each of these factors. For the travelling speed, I'm going to vary the speed by plus or minus 10 kilometers per hour. For the tyre pressure, plus or minus 5 psi. And for the cargo weight, I'm going to vary it by 20 kilos either side. I'm not going to run the experiments, but this gives you a good idea on how to set a design of experiments up. So with three factors, I can vary them from low and high in 8 different arrangements. For example, run 1 has my speed, pressure and weight all on the low setting. Run 5 has the high, low and low. You should conduct multiple runs on each of these different settings to come up with an average, which you can then use in your analysis. You then set up a table with each of the variables along the top and the low and high value. If we were to look at all the situations where the speed was low, we would go to the experiment that contained the speed at the low setting and take the average of those four. In this scenario, we would look for the condition where both the speed and the tyre pressure were at the high setting, and this would correspond to runs 7 and 8 in our design of experiments. It's also worth mentioning that you could do a partial design of experiments to reduce the number of experiments. If these are carefully designed, then you should still be able to understand the effect of the different variables on your measure of concern, which in this case is the driving range. You'll also be able to discover whether these are dependent or independent. Without conducting the experiment, I'd also be guessing that the tyre pressure would perform better at the high setting and the cargo weight would perform better at the low setting. If I were to conduct this experiment, I would have a much better idea of where my variables should be to improve the range